Hi, Steve here from SB Science Tutoring. Just thought I'd post a little video today about kind of the broader implications of science education and the reason it's important that you learn science. I often get asked the question, why do we need to learn all these facts? Why do we need to learn all of this stuff? It's of no use to us in our real life. And I kind of understand it. It's the sort of question that would be quite obvious to ask, especially when you start looking at the more sort of abstract parts of chemistry and physics. I'm sure there are things in biology that you experience every day, like when you run down the street and your heart rate rises. That's a very immediate thing that you can embody and you can sense and you can make sense of. However, there are things in physics and chemistry that you can't directly observe, and you're taking the word of your teacher. Also, it's quite hard to see how you can apply those things elsewhere in your life. I will take that for the team. I will say that actually that's a really good question. However, I think you need to broaden your understanding of what science is. We teach you these facts and these ideas and these processes so you can answer all those beautiful exam questions and you can get the grade you need. But we also teach you what science is as a process. And I think it's really important that you start to understand that when I hear the word science, and maybe when you hear the word science now, you should stop thinking about it as this group of ideas. You need to think about science as a process, as a way of looking at the world, measuring observations and coming to conclusions on those to find facts, find out what's really happening. It's a way of quantifying the things we observe out in the universe. We can ask questions and we can test those questions by using science. It would be fair to say that in the news at the moment, science is very much, no pun intended, under the microscope. I would go so far to say there's a little bit of a war going on science. If you look over to the United States, at the moment they're trying to link autism and autistic spectrum disorders to the use of a very specific drug, which is in paracetamol. They call it Tylenol in the United States. There is no scientific data to back that up. None at all. It's an opinion. And increasingly, we live in a world where opinion is stacked against fact. Science allows us to discover facts. Opinion doesn't come into it. You find evidence, and from that evidence you draw conclusions, and those conclusions are factual because you have tested them. I think it's really important to understand that we live in a world now which is increasingly hostile to your critical analysis of it. Science education allows you to think critically. It allows you to question the validity of what people are saying. So I suppose what this video is telling you is that actually being able to think scientifically and learning science is a way of protecting yourself. It's a way of forming your experience of the world through looking at factual information. It's also a way of interrogating the world out there in a way that allows you to draw conclusions that actually mean something. If we think about how we receive information, it's very narrow. Most of us now, because of the ubiquity and the commonness of smartphones, we generally get our information through our phones. Now, smartphones are designed to give us what we want. Algorithms are designed to give us what we want. So we start to experience the world through a narrower and narrower point of view. Scientific education and scientific thought allows us to fight against that and broaden it out. The question you should be asking when someone gives you their opinion is, what have you got to back that up? Where are the facts that support that opinion? So science education allows you to think critically. It allows you to protect yourself against this circus of opinion that comes through our mobile phones. I think as we move forward, that's going to become increasingly important in society. Carl Sagan, one of my favourite ever communicators of science, talked about the fact that we live in a world which wields awesome technological and scientific power, but most of us don't really understand it. And that leads us down a path of vulnerability. The people who do understand it have the power. And also, misunderstanding it leaves us open to manipulation, and it leads us down a path that can be quite dangerous. And I'll give you an example of that. Going back to the autism and Tylenol / paracetamol argument that seems to be raging over the Atlantic at the moment. If we think about it for a moment, suggesting that women who are pregnant don't take that is incredibly dangerous. It is the safest painkiller we know, and it is also a way of controlling fever. Fever in a pregnant woman is incredibly dangerous, and it can harm the unborn baby. There is definite scientific proof that that would happen. However, there is no scientific proof that paracetamol or Tylenol can increase the chance of autism. I hope that makes sense. I think the value of science, I'm going to say science is a valuable endeavour because it's been my life. However, thinking about it slightly differently as a way of seeing the world in a factual and proof-based way should be enough for you to see that actually it's the way you're going to lead a more widely varied and interesting and more fact-based life. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. Quite heavy for a Friday, but it's just been on my mind. And I think one of the things, as I say, as a science teacher, I get asked all the time is, how am I going to use this? Don't think about the facts. Think about the way that science causes you to think and how it causes you to see the world. And that is where the value is. Okay? Have a good one. See you next week.